um, Drew does the show on. He'll actually be joining you on Tuesdays going forward. But he's over there at Roto Experts for the Daily Fantasy Rundown. But he wanted to know, his specific question was why you thought the hitters today were more difficult than yesterday.
Um, Basically just the way the factors kind of, I don't know, fell into place yesterday relative to today. I mean, today I feel like the pitching is a lot stronger, or at least maybe there's less weak pitching. Um, and there were just not as many factors going in favor of certain guys. I thought, there were three or four positions that were really kind of hard. I kind of had to dig deep to find guys on today, whereas yesterday there was only maybe one or two positions like that.
Okay. So do you feel like your picks today are going to be do you feel like basically you're kind of making sure that if all the picks don't go as according to plan, that you're still going to have it's like something to fall back on? Like, are you making excuses? Basically, what I'm wanting to know.
I'm making excuses early in case it doesn't go well. Can't you tell?
Yes, we like
No.
we like to cover our bases, pun intended, and hedge basically by saying this or that. So, your first like, can you tell everybody kind of your background as far as the fantasy baseball industry goes, and then we'll get on to some of today's games.
Yeah, I've been around the fantasy industry probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. Mostly, though, it was all year-long leagues. I play in all the year-long, expert leagues, Labor and Tout Wars and Yahoo's league and CBS's league. And I do, pretty well. I have one of the top track records in those kind of leagues, a few championships. I usually take home, first, second, or third about half the time, which is really good in leagues that have 12 or 15 guys who all know what they're doing. Um, and then 2011, I started writing for FanDuel. Last year, I was with DFS Edge, which was an upstart daily site, and that's when I really kind of started, really like biting my teeth into daily and looking at all the different factors and everything like that. And then for the past couple of years, I've been building this system, tailored towards daily, with like basically everything that's important for a daily player is going to be in this system, and that's what I'm really excited about. I was with Baseball Prospectus and the Hardball Times, which are two like huge sabermetric sites. I went to MLB Scout School. So yeah, that's pretty much my credentials.
Well, very nice. We're excited about kind of seeing your credentials translate to the daily fantasy world, and that's one thing I feel like what we want to do with the site is we want to kind of merge the analysis part with the of course the strategy for the daily fantasy site. So it's going to be nice to have you and Ben with the uh, in-depth analysis in addition to Dave Lochran and Ryan Hodge and Davis, and also especially from guys like Davis that have playing experience that can kind of and Ryan that will incorporate the strategy part. So without further ado, let's kind of delve into the article that you wrote today. By the way, nice Raven Simone reference.
I thought it was pretty sweet.
Are you mid-20s?
Yeah, I'm 26.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That was about the time that Raven Simone was really popular.
Relevant,
Um,
yes.
but you have Posey as your number one guy, and for the catcher position, last night hit a home run, and it was a glorious home run. It was a home run that basically bumped me up to six before Jonathan Bales captured that with some Seattle magic late night. But um, in the DraftKings game, and it was like I think $1,000 or $1,500 difference with that Posey home run. That's what's exciting about daily fantasy MLB. But you say he's got another good matchup today.
Yeah, he hit his home run last night off of one of Arizona's relievers. I can't remember who it was, but today, he's got a good matchup against Miley, who is a good pitcher, but like on a day like today where the pitching is strong, like I don't know, good is the right word, above average ish. So against a guy like that, when the pitching's so strong, um, I feel like that's a good matchup, especially when he has the platoon advantage and when he's playing in a park that's far superior to what he's used to playing in and what his prices are all based upon.
Yeah, and as far as like teams to stack, would you put the Giants as a team to stack today?
I think there's quite a few Giants that are worth stacking today. Um, I might, if I'm saying like my top team to stack, it might be the Angels. I feel like, especially their outfielders, they have a lot of good guys like Josh Hamilton, Cole Calhoun, Raul Ibanez. That could that could all kind of go off today. I feel like the factors are a little more favorable for them, but there's definitely some Giants that are going to be in play.
Yeah, you Cole Calhoun. I want to give a shout out to Drew Dinkmeyer because he mentioned him on the show yesterday, and he did get positive points. Not enough though. On the Fantasy Elite show, for those that missed it yesterday, basically Drew and Mike Leone went at it, and Mike won again. He's now basically 2-0. So Drew has his work cut out for him, and hopefully they'll have more drafts in the future. But Drew will be on tomorrow's NBA show with Scott, so we'll definitely have to ask him there. He says he says that always good when the shout out is because he did get positive points. Let's see. Kyle says that he's got to start somewhere. But as far, if you had one team to stack, you think it would be the Angels, and it looks like they do have a pretty good matchup tonight. Any other teams that you think that you might want to stack?
I think there's a few Yankees that can be worth stacking. Not sure yet if the roof's going to be open at Minute Maid, but if it is, then I would definitely lean towards them a little more heavily. I think a lot of their prices. I mean, they picked up so many free agents this winter, and a lot of their prices are based on games that were played in lesser parks and just under lesser conditions than they're gonna have today. So I think there's a lot of Yankees that are worth considering.
Getting some comments in the chat. Yeah, I think Yankees, obviously, and want to ask your opinion on just your baseball opinion on basically, since we're talking strategy, on basically bad teams playing this year. Um, so you have like last year, a lot of time people picked on the Cubs, people picked
Hmm.
on the Astros, sometimes even picked on the Mariners just because they don't have a lot of bats. What are some teams this year that, if you wanted to pick on, just in generalities, that you might? I mean, I'm guessing the Cubs, as seen yesterday, might be one of those.
Yeah, are we talking like pitchers here, like pitchers up against like really bad offenses,
Correct.
or
Yes.
yeah, I think the Cubs are definitely going to be one of those teams. I think the Marlins are going to be one of those teams. The Astros again are going to be one of those teams. Probably the Twins. Um, maybe a couple others. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, the Mariners probably won't be that much better this year, especially once some of their guys start getting hurt, which is going to be inevitable. Um, so yeah, those are the teams I'd probably zero in on.
Mariners absolutely crushed it last night, late in the game. Want to go over some of Ben Pritchett, aka Natural Slugger. You can reach him on Twitter at Natural Slugger. He wrote the pitchers article. If you haven't checked it out on Fantasy Insiders, make sure you do so because it is, as usual, knowing Ben, it is in depth. So, top five pitchers for him are C.J. Wilson, and I think that the consensus on C.J. Wilson being the top pitcher is it's risky, but again, Ben likes to kind of put his neck out there, so he thinks that C.J. Wilson is going to be the guy that you want to target. Zach Greinke, number 2 for the Dodgers. The Dodgers also have a decent matchup versus in Kennedy, who Ben has on his list to trash tonight. So, talking about kind of the strategy part, you've got the win, of course, that is very important in daily fantasy baseball. And Greinke definitely has a good matchup there. Number 3 is a guy that is dear to my heart, and that is a Mr. Matt Cain. For those that may have missed it last year, Matt Cain was the pitcher that got me to the FanDuel um, Fantasy Baseball Championship. And there is a YouTube video out there that has me freaking out. But I will always be a big fan of Matt Cain for that reason. Ben says, Cain isn't going to knock your socks off. He's consistent and will be a good bet for a quality start with 5+ strikeouts. His price on Draft Street is really intriguing to me. Even with the power of the Arizona right-handed bats, I'm surprised that Cain is only the 7th priciest starter there. Your thoughts on basically having Cain at number 3 with those Arizona bats?
I don't know if he'd be 3 for me. I do think Kane can be a solid pitcher today, but I have him more in like my second tier. I You say CJ Wilson is risky, and he is a little bit, but probably in my top 3 would also be, along with Wilson and Greinke, Brett Anderson, who is about as risky as they're going to come. But I like the profit potential on him today. I mean, he's playing against a really weak offense in a really good park, and he's a good pitcher, even though he hasn't pitched a whole lot over the past couple seasons. So I think I'd like him better than Kane today. But Kane, I think could be solid.
Interesting. Brett Anderson, that would be that's a gutsy play. Do you think that's more of a, like we talk on the show about cash game plays like 50-50s and double ups where you want to kind of play it safe, or the high upside GPP plays? Are you saying that you would feel comfortable in rostering him in a cash game, or would you rather pay up for a Greinke or go risky with a Wilson?
I definitely prefer Anderson in like a larger pool in like a tournament or in one of those things, as opposed to a head-to-head game. Especially if on like a site like FanDuel where you're only going to get one pitcher. Anderson, I mean, like super risky when he's your only guy. But on a site where there's 3 pitchers, I wouldn't have a problem making him one of them in a heads-up game.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben also points out that Drew Hutchinson is his number 4, and he kind of mentions that as well as far as the multi-pitcher sites, like having Drew Hutchinson as, he mentions him as a 3rd pitcher on Draft Street or a number 2 pitcher on a site like Draft Day. So Ben said, his last sentence, though, is remember, he's a lot like Tanner Shepard was yesterday. He has risk and could suffer from jitters. That is getting into the thinking part of baseball. How much of that, you're an analytics guy. Do you ever think about factors such as jitters?
I don't know if I necessarily think about them in those terms. I mean, obviously, like a guy like Hutchison who hasn't pitched in the majors in a couple years and, had all kinds of injury issues and everything. And he basically had to, claw his way to a rotation spot this spring. I mean, there's risk with him. I mean, there's definitely blow-up risk, the same as there was with Shepard yesterday. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be because of jitters. I mean, it could be. We don't know anything about these players' psychologies, and psychology matters. But I don't like to speculate on it too much just because I don't know who Drew Hutchinson is as a person,
Yes. And I think I would agree with you in that part of it. And in daily fantasy, we have people that like to speculate on the mental factors, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. I know that it's big for like basketball. We talk about revenge games, and birthdays. We'll talk about basically slumps in the majors. Bobblehead nights is another one. Trying too hard, that sort of thing. But I think I would lean with you towards the statistical side of things. He mentions Martin Perez as his fifth pitcher for the Rangers. Uh, this against the Phillies in a nice ballpark. And he even mentions this coming off a game where the Phillies scored 14 runs. One would assume they would be a bit tired. We can only hope. Uh, it kind of strikes me as a risky play. How do you see Martin Perez today?
Martin Perez is definitely a risky play. He's a guy who I've never quite bought into him as much as everyone else seems to. I didn't think the stuff was kind of as good as a lot of scouts said it was, or as a lot of people kind of credit him for. Now, Ben did mention that he added a cutter this spring. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it's like, but obviously that kind of thing can help. But for his first time out, I don't think he would be for me, especially, with a pretty, I don't know, lackluster matchup on tap. I mean, the Phillies aren't a great offense, but they're not terrible either. He's up against a very good starting pitcher in AJ Burnett. So I feel like I don't know, for me, there's better options.
Yeah, he mentions CC as another guy, but he has in parentheses that there's diminishing velocity and he struggled last year versus the right-handed bats. Um, and Wade Miley versus San Fran as another guy. What are your thoughts on CC and Wade as other pitchers?
I actually think both of them um, could be pretty good today. I think they both have pretty good matchups. Obviously, there's concerns with both of them. CC's prices, from what I looked today, seem to be higher than I expected them to be, and there's still that velocity issue. I mean, it was down last year, and then reports in spring were that it was down even further. I'm not sure exactly how high he got it up by the end of spring, but if he's still sitting like 87, 88, that would definitely worry me, even against a Houston Astros team.
So maybe you want to stack the Astros then as a contrarian play on some of these sides, or a mini stack with Astros to kind of hedge. But CC would be, I think he'd be a tournament play. All right, so we've listed these pitchers. Any other pitchers that you might want to target today?
No, I think I listed the guys that I would be on board with. I think Miley's actually a pretty solid play. Going up against Kane isn't great, but the Giants' offense isn't anything too special. Even though I kind of said, play some Giants against Miley, but just for Miley's price, I feel like he could also be a solid play today. Yeah, those are pretty much my guys: Brett Anderson, Greinke, Wilson.
So you're sticking with those three. Brett Anderson. I mean, you're kind of convincing me to play him in what could be. I don't know. Like I kind of want after last night. I kind of want to play it safe. I went with Justin Verlander, and I feel like C.J. Wilson is as risky as Verlander. So I kind of just want to roll out Greinke tonight. I think for me, he's probably the safest player of the day. If you're just now tuning in, though, this is the Fantasy Insiders Daily MLB show, and I'm Soccer Dave. Joining me is Derek Carty of MLB.com and FantasyInsiders.com. He has his hitters article on the day. Okay, Derek, if you could put one player in your lineup, one hitter in your lineup, who does it need to be? Like, very generic, but who is that one guy that if you had to choose, you'd put in your lineup?
I think the guy today is, well, I mean, Mike Trout, but price sensitively, I think it's either Josh Hamilton or Buster Posey.
Someone said that tonight was Mike Trout bobblehead night. Can you confirm that?
I cannot confirm it, but if it is, I mean, he's going to go off. So you might as well just draft Mike Trout wherever you can, regardless of price. Just do it.
You're gonna get along just fine here at Fantasy Insiders with the bobblehead belief night. Okay, before we get on to the rest of the hitters, Dirty wants to know about Alex Cobb as an option tonight. Your thoughts on Mr. Cobb?
I love Alex Cobb. I've loved Alex Cobb for a long time. I owned him the year he came up for the Rays in an AL only league, and now everyone's kind of on the Alex Cobb train. Um, but Cobb is a very good pitcher. He doesn't throw that hard, but his like split change, whatever it is just ridiculous. His matchup tonight, though, is I would put it in like the second tier of matchups. Not quite Anderson, Greinke, Wilson territory, but after that, he would be one of the next guys I would look at. Hutchison's a question mark. The Jays' offense isn't necessarily guaranteed to be that strong, and he's a very good pitcher with a whole slew of factors in his favor every single day between the park and the catcher and the defense and all that.
Um, Thoughts on Eovaldi? That question from JCM B-Ball 9.
Eovaldi, Eovaldi's another one of those prospect guys, kind of like Perez, where I never bought into him as much as everyone else seemed to. I mean, last year it kind of seemed like he might be putting some things together. Obviously his fastball is very fast, but the Rockies' offense is pretty strong, and I'm just not really convinced on him today. I think there's a lot of better options.
Okay, let's get into Mike Trout. It is bobblehead night. So that is, hold on, let me get the... Tonight is Mike Trout bobblehead night, so you want to play all of the Mike Trout. If you wanted to play Mike Trout with, I would say it would be a lot easier to play Trout with a guy like Anderson, for sure. But if you wanted to pair him with Greinke, any cheap studs out there that you are looking at?
Cheap studs? Are you talking about hitters then? If we're pairing him with Greinke?
Yes, correct.
I don't know about cheap studs, but I mean there are some cheap hitters out there who offer some profit potential. I mean I talked about Brian Roberts today with the Yankees, who is just all sorts of a mess all the time. But when he's on the field and he seems relatively healthy now, I feel like he could be okay. I think Matt Dominguez in Houston at third base could be okay. Joaquin Arias in San Francisco, he's filling in for Marco Scutaro right now. He's super cheap. I think he's the minimum on a lot of sites. He can play, pretty much any of the infield positions for you, depending on the site you're on. And he's got, a decent matchup. So those might be the kind of guys I would look at. Or I guess more middle range guys. I think Ibanez for the Angels and Matt Joyce for Tampa Bay. You won't have to pay too much for them, but they could really produce like, upper middle tier kind of guys today.
Interesting. I'm just pulling up some of these salaries across the industry. As far as the where you see the most value at a position, what would that be for you tonight? I mean, outfield generally is kind of full of potential plays. I'm guessing outfield would be that way again for you tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely outfield.
What other position other than outfield are you think that there's just a number of options?
I think catcher, there's a lot of options besides the two that I mentioned in my article, Posey and McCann. I think Carlos Ruiz is going to be, a solid option today.
Huge.
If you're really digging deep, I haven't checked the lineups yet. I don't know if he's going to be playing, but Hank Conger for the Angels, if he's starting at catcher, I feel like he could be a good option today. So there's definitely some options behind the plate.
Quats wants to know about Seth Smith tonight.
Seth Smith. Okay. Let me take a look. Who are the Padres playing tonight? Oh, the Dodgers against Greinke. No, I don't like Seth Smith tonight. Especially, is he in the lineup, Smith?
I don't.
He's
I'm pulling up lineups right now. So
Seth Smith is Oh,
Yeah, he's
mhm.
batting second
Yeah,
against Greinke.
batting second.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, batting second is good. He's got the platoon advantage, but Greinke's just so good. I mean, I would have a hard time playing anybody against the top pitcher of the day. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got some cheap guys. Talking about punt plays, you've got some cheap guys on this Miami team. You've got Baker hitting second, 2.7 there on DraftKings. McGee
Hmm.
batting cleanup at 3K. Jones at 3K against Brett Anderson. I guess what I'm getting at is that on sites where you can sort of stack, mini stack, the Marlins would be an interesting play, but it also kind of goes back to your thinking that Brett Anderson would be a safe play if you've got all these cheap bats for Miami. I mean, all he basically has to do is avoid Stanton, and he could have a nice night. But were you a big fan? You said you were a big fan of his in Oakland.
Yeah. The other thing with Anderson, you look at the Marlins lineup. I just pulled it up. Anderson's got the platoon advantage against all of their, all of their bats that actually matter, except for Stanton. He's got it against Yelich. He's got it against Garrett Jones. He's got it against Salty. So that basically just leaves Stanton and then a whole lot of crap. So that's I'm talking myself and Anderson more right now, looking at the lineup that Miami's trotting out there.
Oh, for sure. So let's see. Uh, Colin says Baker. He was a popular play last night. A lot of people had Brett Baker. A lot of people also had your boy Grady Sizemore. I'm just wondering if there's that cheap guy out there tonight that will be the same. We have, it's getting back to your article. You have
Oh,
some Braves. Freddie Freeman
okay.
listed number
Okay, I
one.
got a cheap guy for you.
Okay.
Um,
First, give me the cheap guy.
Let me make sure. Hold on. Where is? Okay, yeah, cheap guy. Okay. John Mayberry is in the lineup for Philly against Martin Perez, platoon advantage. I said I'm not a big Perez fan. In a good ballpark, Mayberry I could see having a good night, and he's not going to cost too much, I wouldn't think, anywhere.
Okay, very nice. Freddie Freeman, first base. You like him?
Yep, I like him.
Top overall spot. Just kind of let us know like why you would want to take him at the number one overall at the first base spot.
The big thing with him today is first base is shallower than normal. As I said, a lot of positions were kind of shallow today, but first base you don't think of as a shallow position. But today there weren't a ton of options that I really loved. Um, he's up against Kyle Loesch, who I really like. I feel like Loesch is super underrated, but Freeman, he's got he plays at home in Turner Field, which is basically a neutral park. And today he's playing in Miller, which is one of the top parks in all of baseball for power. So I can definitely see him, possibly having a good power night there. Especially, I think I was looking earlier. The weather there looked pretty good for him if the roof stays open. Yeah, the wind is blowing out 14 miles an hour. It says right now, if that stays open. So there's definitely a lot to like with Freeman,
Yeah,
especially if you go with Brett Anderson. You need to spend your money on someone.
you have. Speaking of weather, I think we need to get either Fish Cake King or Papa Cub there in the chat to be our daily weatherman. We can have a whole weather segment on the show. But looking at some of the games for tonight, the Oakland game again in jeopardy. Last night it did clear; they were able to play the game without any sort of hiccups. And then you also have a slight chance of rain for this Angels Mariners game. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Really, the only issue is going to be this Oakland game. So I would stay away from this game. Just play it safe. As we talk about, like we'll mention it time and time again in this on this show is to play it safe when it comes to weather. It's better to just unless you're in tournaments and want to take a risk, It's better to just avoid these high percentage rain games, weather games, if at all possible, because if you get, especially if you have more than one person in this game, it could be a big blow to your team. And when you factor in that it's going to be the late game of the night, and you're not going to be sure as far as when traditional lineups lock, if it's going to be played. All right, let's take a look at some of the other matchups and where Vegas has some of these games. You've got the highest over under in the Philly and Texas game, with Texas being a pretty favorable play. You also have the Yankees and Houston, with the Yankees being a decent favorite, but that's also at an 8.5, and then San Fran and Arizona being basically a split at minus 110, but having an 8.5 run total. The lowest run total is going to be, according to Vegas, is going to be in this Dodgers San Diego game, where you have a 6.5 run total, with Greinke getting the advantage there. If you're favoring the win, or if you're weighing the win in a favorable fashion, maybe is what I was trying to say. I don't really know what I was trying to say there. But if you're looking at guys that Vegas thinks are going to win, CJ Wilson is a minus 170 with a 7.5 over under. So Vegas does agree with Ben there. Also, Tampa Bay is around the same thing as the Angels game against Toronto. They are minus 169. So, yeah, that kind of goes in line what people were thinking with that game. But you said that Cobb really, I mean, you nor Ben really list Cobb, even though Vegas has him as a decent play. Like, you guys aren't listing him in your top 5 or 6.
Yeah, he's I said he'd be in my second tier. He's probably around 5, 6, 7, probably somewhere like that for me.
Hellmobbin says that he's in the Bay Area right now, and he wants to give us an update. It's raining. We need to have the Family Guy clip where he says, "It's gonna rain," where the weatherman says that. It's funny. All right, let's get over to Star Street and see about their rapid fire games that they have. And while we're doing that, you again in your hitting article listed some Yankees. You already talked about Brian Roberts, but you also like Kelly Johnson, and he is eligible at multiple positions across different sites tonight for the Yankees.
Yeah, he is. I mean, outfield is one of them, so there's no way I'd play him in the outfield, given all the other options that are available. But with second and third, where the options are kind of limited, I think he could be a good guy to plug in for a reasonable price, and then go big at another position.
All right, we have our pick 5, and we may even try to get to the rapid fire. But Ryan Braun versus Paul Goldschmidt, just overall fantasy points. And again, on these pick 5, you can basically choose to play 5 out of 5 for like $11 equals $200 if you win, or you can play it safe, and it's basically like a double up or head to head, where $11 gets you $20 if you win and get 3 out of 5. So Ryan Braun versus Paul Goldschmidt.
I'll take Braun. I think I liked what I saw out of him yesterday, and I feel like Alex Wood's a little bit of a weaker pitcher than Matt Cain. He gets the home field advantage in a better park than Goldschmidt has. So yeah, I'll take Braun.
Do you think the Brewers are going to destroy the Braves tonight?
No, I don't think so. I think Wood's a good pitcher. I actually think it'll probably be a pretty close game. I think they both have good offenses. They both have good pitchers going. I think it'll be a good game.
Okay. Well, that's what I mean. People were talking about the some of the Brewers' bats, so I was interested to see what you had to say about them. You did pick Braun over Goldschmidt, though. Stanton versus Tulo. Here's a chance to basically put your money where your mouth is, Derek.
Well, because we know that Brett Anderson is going to avoid Giancarlo Stanton today, we're going to go with Tulo. Honestly,
Is
though, actually, now that I'm looking at it, I would go with Stanton. I mean, they'll probably pitch him around him a little bit, but he does have a better matchup. It looks like
all right. Going with Stanton over Tulo. Bautista versus Ellsbury.
Batista Ellsbury. I would take Ellsbury. He was one of the guys on my article today that I like. I don't think Scott Feldman's a very good pitcher. Especially as I said, if they keep the roof open in Houston, I think Ellsbury is the way to go. And Batista's up against Cobb, so yeah, definitely Ellsbury.
Yeah, you did list Ellsbury in your outfield plays along with Hunter Pence and Matt Joyce and Josh Hamilton, who you guys have talked about today. Hopefully, the outfielders can do as good as they did yesterday. Beltre versus Longo.
Okay. I think I go with Longo. I mean, Drew Hutchison, I like him. I think he's a good sleeper candidate this year, especially in like year-long leagues. He's throwing hard. He throws a good mix of pitches, but I don't know. He's no AJ Burnett, and I feel like Longo's a better player than Beltre in general. So Longo,
Freddie Freeman versus Prince Fielder.
Freddie Freeman, come on.
I knew you were going to say that. Just had to put it out there. All right, there you go. I feel good. I feel good about those picks. Do you feel good about those picks?
Yeah, I do.
You better, because there's going to be a lot of people
yeah.
who use them.
Well, yeah, I feel good about them. I mean, two of the guys are guys that I even picked today, so yeah, I feel good about it.
Papa Cup wants to know, when you start constructing a team, where do you start first? Do you start with a pitcher and work your way down? Do you start with hitters that you want, like tonight being the case where you have to have Trout in your lineup? Do you start there? What do you do as far as lineup construction is concerned?
It's kind of a mix. They kind of almost feed into each other. I'll usually start with the pitcher, and then I'll either take, I'll usually start with the one that I think has the biggest profit potential, and then I'll go and fill in the hitters. And if I realize that I don't have enough, I'm not spending enough money with the hitters, maybe I'll go and I'll buy, a higher price pitcher instead, who also has profit potential, but who I'm going to put more money on the table for to kind of try and even things out.
Yeah, I think a lot of times for me, it depends on the site and the game that I'm playing. So, for instance, on FanDuel, I'll start with the pitcher. On DraftKings, I'll start with the team that I want to do at least a mini stack with. For those of you who don't know, DraftKings did make it where you have to play at least three batters from different teams. However, it still allows you to stack. But when you're talking about at least three different batters, like there's still the element of skill into it. It's just a different type of game. Honestly, it's an easier game than some of the other games. Like there, a game like Draft Street, where this year you're playing two starting pitchers, and the pricing is so much that it's difficult to play that third starting pitcher. Like it is a big debate every day that you make your lineup. Are you going to go with a relief pitcher, or are you going to go with a starting pitcher that you know is going to get points, but is going to limit the amount of talented bats that you can have in that lineup? So every site would be different. I would say if you're looking over there at Draft Street, Ben's relief pitcher of the day is Soria at $1,200. Again, if you use this, basically if you go relief pitcher over a just a regular pitcher, you you can upgrade your bats a lot. And if you don't, then you're going to have to go with a lot of value bats. But that would be where I would start off with is just kind of take a look at what the site is and what basically what strategy works best for you on that site. For me, it's about the pitcher on FanDuel. It's about basically relief pitcher or starting pitcher as that third pitching option on Draft Street, and it's stackability on DraftKings and Star Street. And also, multi-position sites are different than, or multi-pitcher position sites are different than the single pitcher position site. Like yesterday, I got Verlander wrong, and even people that played Strauss, he got shelled. He still had strikeouts, and of course, Sale had a good game. Jose Fernandez had a good game. Like if you get pitcher wrong on FanDuel, it takes a lot for you to be able to come back and win. So that just is a little bit of strategy. Again, I just think it's all about the site and really how you feel about the day. Like today, you've convinced me to put Brett Anderson in a few lineups. Probably going to say that most of them are going to be tourney lineups, but I could see using Brett Anderson on DraftKings as a second pitcher easily. So no pressure, but you definitely have put some on yourself. Again, Ben's two to trash. He lists in Kennedy and Scott Kazmir. I think you want to stay away from Kazmir regardless because of the weather situation that looks like it's going to surface. If you have any questions for us, we've got about 10 minutes left. We would love to answer them. And just feel free to ask us in chat or feel free to hit us up on Twitter. Derek, you've gained like 200 followers in the past few days. You're
Yeah, I think
becoming
we're more than that. Last night it was like every 30 seconds, like a new follower would come in every time, like someone would tweet about like what my guys were doing. It was crazy last night.
well. Again, you're only just increasing the pressure on yourself. All right. So if you're having to play, let's see. Or Kyle wants to know best shortstop for the day.
Best
Value
shortstop
wise.
overall or in terms of like value?
I think he wants to know about both, really.
Both. Okay. Well, I think the best value you're probably going to be looking at a guy like Eric Ibar. Um, Overall, give me a second. Let me pull up a list of shortstops today.
Yeah, I
Um,
think while you're looking at that, I think with daily fantasy baseball, you're either going with the stud shortstop that you know is going to produce, or you're looking for kind of that cheap punt play that is in a good situation. You kind of listed both of these guys here with Ibar for the Angels. You really like the Angels tonight. And you like, as far as the punt position, you like the opportunity that Arias is getting for the Giants.
yeah, I think Hanley could be a good play if you want to spend really big. I do kind of like Ian Kennedy, but he looks like he might be the best of like the big money options.
Yeah, Nab was asking about your thoughts on Hanley. So you think that he's probably the safest shortstop option?
Yeah, I mean if you're looking to spend big at shortstop, he's the guy. He's the guy I would do it on tonight.
Bird or Baker on DraftKings? Same price, Bird or
Um,
Baker?
Let me see. I think I would go with Bird. Um, he's in a good park up against Perez, platoon advantage. Baker, obviously, we're talking about Jeff Baker with the Marlins, right?
Yes,
Um, yeah, he's cheaper, batting a little higher up in the order, but he's up against my man Brett Anderson, so I can't go against that. But Bird
exactly.
is just better in general, and I think has a little bit more favorable of a matchup.
You list Kelly Johnson as your top second baseman in the article, but as far as like overall, would you list him as the top second base play today, or would you go basically who is the best expensive second base option? That question from Mr. Dirty.
Best expensive second base option. Let me take a look. I think. Hmm. I could see. Uh, hmm. It's tough. I don't see anyone I love yet.
Well, that's fine. I mean, there. I don't think that there is.
Yeah,
Looking at
maybe Altuve.
okay, Altuve is a guy. I think also that whoever wrote the Roto Experts blurb today also has him as their top play. So you guys are in line with that. But again, the shortstop and the second base, the middle infield positions, uh, a lot of times people just look for punt plays, especially when you have all the power at the corners and in the outfield. So I don't think it's wrong to say that you really don't see an expensive second baseman out there because you don't want to pay for him if you don't have to. Papa Cub wants to know concern at all that Kelly could get lifted for defensive purposes later in the game.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that kind of thing's always a concern. I think I mentioned that in regards to Matt Joyce in my article today being lifted for a pinch hitter, which I didn't think was much of a risk for him today. But it's possible Johnson could get lifted. I don't think it would sway me from drafting him today, especially with the position being so shallow. But I mean, it's possible.
Kyle wants to know Rollins or Jeter.
Rollins or Jeter? Okay, let me take a look.
You like the
Um,
Yankees today?
yeah, I'll take Rollins.
Longo or Aram? Guessing that is Mr. Aramis.
Yes. Who was the other one? Longo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll take Aram. Although I think that one's pretty close.
Drew wants to know Joyce hitting leadoff versus Kelly hitting ninth.
Oh, Joyce is hitting leadoff tonight. Nice. Yeah, definitely Joyce.
Oh, you got a little excited in that, Derek.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, so fire up Matt Joyce, everybody. Well, that will do it for today's show. If you have any more questions, we might do a lightning round in a second. Want to just update people, though, in the meantime, of what's going on at Fantasy Insiders. We are just basically working hard to get Derek's projection system out there where it's ready. We're working hard on the premium stuff and articles, lineups, pages, and hope to have all this ready we're talking about mid to late April. We still want to continue to do shows. Our shows will move times somewhat, and most of that is due to the fact that I'll be on daddy duty starting next week. So we are going to be having our daily fantasy MLB show, and we will be having some late night sweat shows / draft shows that Fantasy Elite is sponsoring. If you haven't played yet on the Fantasy Elite iPhone or iPad app, make sure that you're doing that because we're gonna have some fun with this show. It's gonna be like kind of an after hours, after dark sort of show. Not as I mean, some of the players will already have been playing, so we're gonna be drafting for the late slate on these shows and also taking a look at sweats. Also going to not actual like sweatpants, but players that are sweating their games out, as well as just basically talking about the industry and the next day's game. So we're going to be discussing this and more, and this will be like in 2 weeks. it's basically all going to be baseball. We will have the basketball show tomorrow as scheduled, and on Friday. Friday there is a big tournament on FanDuel, and it is the $1.2 million NBA tournament that's going on there. So there's a lot of people that have tickets and that will buy in tickets. I'm curious to see how fast this thing will sell out, because FanDuel is they've kind of flexed their muscle with these tournaments. If you haven't already signed up for FanDuel, use our links to sign up for them, and then go take a look at the $8 million in prizes that they're giving away for this World Baseball Daily Fantasy Championship, or whatever it's called. But for those that may not know, Tuttle qualified twice last year for this. I qualified once. My goal was going into it just not to be last place, and I accomplished that by finishing 44th out of 45th. And so I was second to last. But you've got the winner being given $1 million this year. And they've got a high stakes role. I mean, it's like there's going to be a lot of baseball stuff going on. So the daily game has just kind of followed suit with baseball and expanding prizes, and hopefully that means the industry will grow as well. So we can't wait to kind of show you what we've been working on and continue rolling out premium quality content and TV shows. So again, that's really what we're looking forward to doing. Let's see. Just reading over the chat. I think really the only question is any love for D. Gordon as a shortstop punt?
Probably not a whole lot. He's a lot of his value is going to be based on his speed. He's batting 8th tonight, it looks like, which is going to limit, how often they're going to let him run. Plus, I am, a relative Ian Kennedy fan, so, I mean, I'm sure there's worse guys, but he's probably not the guy I'd be looking at.
Very nice. Well, Derek, I mean, how did you think your first show went?
I thought it was a lot of fun. Wasn't exactly sure what to expect at first, but I think I settled in a little bit, and I'm looking forward to do more of them.
You were kind of like Sonny Gray then, basically.
Exactly.
You kind of got rattled in the first, but then you settled down, did nicely. Shout out to my boy Sonny Gray. Did work last night. For those that do not know, I'm a huge Vandy fan, so I am partial to Sonny Gray, David Price, and Mike Minor, and Pedro Alvarez. Those guys are near and dear to my heart. Well, that will do it for the show. We will be back tomorrow, same time, with Scott Malwig and Drew Dinkmeyer. We will be discussing the NBA, and we probably will have a little bit of MLB analysis. So tomorrow will be one of those weird hybrid shows that we talked about. Anyways, thanks for joining us, and tune back in tomorrow, and we'll be with you then. Derek, I know they can't see you, but can you at least say goodbye and that you love everybody?
I love you guys so much. Good luck tonight, and any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter.